Welcome to Noble Black News, where empowerment meets truth. Our mission is to uplift and empower the Black community. We stand for truth, integrity, and representation. Our stories are your stories, told with pride and passion. Join us as we celebrate our heritage and our future. Together, we are stronger, louder, and more united. Noble Black News is your voice, your platform, your news. We bring you the stories that matter, with integrity and heart. Our commitment is to the truth, no matter the cost. We highlight the achievements and struggles of our community. Every story we tell is a step towards empowerment. We are more than news. We are a movement. Join us in making a difference, one story at a time. Together, we can change the narrative. Noble Black News, empowering our community, one story at a time.
Joining us now is Ojinika Ojiope with stories trending around the world. Hello, Jinix.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you this morning?
Good.
Perfect.
Good, yeah.
Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, Oji. Good to see you today.
Good to see you today, too. Are we celebrating today? Good morning, Rufai. How are you this morning?
Very well.
Are we celebrating today?
I think his expression says it all.
Does it?
Celebrating what, really?
Well, all right.
The pain, the penury, the poverty?
Okay.
Oh.
All right, then. Well, let's begin what's trending. As President Bola Tinubu marks 1 year in office today, May 29th, presidential spokesperson Bayo Ononuga, who is a special advisor on information and strategy, and Ajuri Ngelale, special advisor to the president on media and publicity, were at loggerheads on Tuesday over the president's State of the Nation address at the joint session of the National Assembly, scheduled to hold today as part of the 25th anniversary of Nigeria's democratic journey. Bayo Ononuga, in a post on X, had announced that Tinubu would address the National Assembly to mark the Democracy Day anniversary, as reported by the clerk of the National Assembly. Ajuri Ngelale, however, in a statement, refuted the claim, stating that the information was false and unauthorized, and that the office of the president was not involved in planning the event, eliciting a wave of criticism. Well, let's take Ajuri Ngelale's statement. He wrote in part, in view of public commentary concerning the president delivering a speech before a joint sitting of the National Assembly tomorrow, which is today, May 29th, 2024, it is important to state that this information is false and unauthorized, as the office of the president was not involved in the planning of the event. I mean, this is coming, at a time where we don't need this type of confusion between the spokespersons of the president. Bayo Ononuga had posted, in fact, a report that was delivered by the clerk of the National Assembly. And apparently, it's holding today at 11 a.m. The president is set to deliver his address at the National Assembly today at 11 a.m. So we don't know what happened to Ajuri Ngelale there. I believe, I don't know, it's between Ajuri and Bayo that we are always contemplating on who is giving Nigerians the correct information. Let me take Nefertiti's tweet. The presidency announced it. The presidency says it's fake news. Policy flip-flops was one of the reasons Total Energies decided to take its whopping $6 billion energy project to Angola and another $600 million investment to Congo. A very unserious government. Rufai, your thoughts before I take this one.
So, I think what happened between Bayo Ononuga and Ajuri Ngelale is reflective of the confusion that has heralded the first year anniversary of President Tinubu. Mm-hmm. It is same in this government. We had an announcement about the Maersk deal. It is same in this government that we had Dubai
that was,
is back.
Bayo Ononuga's faux pas.
Yeah. It's the same, what's it called? We had Dubai is back and all of that.
That was Ajuri Ngelale.
Also Ajuri Ngelale's faux pas. And Ajuri also did another one. You remember when Ajuri said that Tinubu was the first president to go to NASDAQ and, ring
that was Ajuri Ngelale.
So that was Ajuri. So This bunch of guys have been giving out false information. They are the purveyors of fake news from the presidency, and that's reflective, and it speaks volumes. I know Dr. Bazi will talk about the internal workings, and he will tell you the story of how, oh, this will never happen in my time. I mean, I can predict what he's going to say. But a couple of things. I knew there was going to be a problem, and please, I'm not trying to fish out for anything. When Bayo Onanuga was brought in as strategy information SA, and Ajuri was in that job too, and it was just a different decision was strategy. And I've been seeing a lot of the breakback because I felt it was a duplication of duty. If you were keeping Bayo, keep him. I mean, if you were keeping Ajuri, keep him. So why was there a need? And this was an action that came in much later. So we've seen this break back and forth. Anyway, somebody did explain to me then that, oh, because Mr. Bayo Onanuga has more experience, so he will do the dirty job of facing the opposition, which he has done some of. Then Ajuri will do the job of conveying the heart of the presidency and all of that. But there's no how they're not going to clash. So I think they should fix their problem internally. Because we don't even know now, are we going to have a State of the Union address of some sort or not? Or we have to wait till 11? Because this misinformation is writ large. In all of this, what's even the Minister of Information saying? But it's a reflection of the confusion we face. And the earlier they fix it, the better. Just like the confusion that extends to, you know, the custom officers fighting another government parastatal, you know, and all of that. So there's just a lot of bickering and what is going on in this country, which is an eyesore, and what is happening in Kano.
Yeah. Well, you asked a question. Let me take Bayo Onanuga's statement, if we can. He said President Bola Tinubu will not make a broadcast to the nation on Wednesday to celebrate his first anniversary as the leader of Nigeria. Instead, the president will address a joint session of the National Assembly, which has lined up a program to commemorate 25 years of the nation's democratic journey at both the executive and legislative levels. President Tinubu's speech will dwell on the achievements of his administration and Nigeria's democracy since the military ceded power in 1999. And so that's what's going to happen today. I believe the president will deliver his goodwill remarks at the National Assembly, followed by the commissioning of the library. And afterwards, he will proceed to inaugurate additional projects in the federal capital territory. This is from our State House correspondent.
Okay.
Well,
good.
In the meantime, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, in a statement appraising President Bola Tinubu's 1 year in office, said the nation's economy has worsened since Tinubu assumed office, adding that the president embarked on a cocktail of policies with no concrete plans to achieve the remodeling of the economy he has promised. His statement on X reads in part, predictably, 12 months on, Tinubu's pledge of growing the economy and ending misery remains unfulfilled. His actions or inactions have significantly worsened Nigeria's macroeconomic stability. Nigeria remains a struggling economy and is more fragile today than it was a year ago. Indeed, all the economic ills, joblessness, poverty, and misery, which defined the Buhari-led administration, has only exacerbated. Africa's leading economy has slipped to the 4th position, lagging behind Algeria, Egypt, and South Africa. Citizens' hopes have been dashed and not renewed, contrary to the propaganda of the administration, as Nigeria's economic woes have multiplied. Well, all right. I mean, we at Arise News and we pulled up, you know, Tinubu's economic indices in the past year. And if we can pull that up, you know, let's compare what happened before President assumed office. Petrol price then was 238 naira per liter. Now it's 701 naira per liter. Diesel then was 844 naira per liter. Now it's 1,415 naira per liter. And that is a 67.6% increase. While food inflation rate then was 24.82%. Now is at 40.54%. That is a 37.52% increase. Inflation rates then was 22.41%. Now is at 33.69%. And that is a 31.15% increase. And foreign reserves then It was $35 billion then. Now it's at $32 billion. Exchange rate then was at $1 to 461 naira. Now it's at $1 to 1,479. What's that exchange rate? And that is a 220% increase. I mean,
sad reality.
Very sad reality. Let me just take the final one, which is the public debt. Then it was 87.38 trillion. Now it's at 97.34 trillion. And that is 11.4% increase. And then oil production. Then it was 1.18 per barrel, and now it is 1.28 million per barrel. And that is an 8.47% increase. I mean, Dr. Abati, we can go on and on with all of this. Finally, there's also the interest rate, which was then at 18%. Now it's at 26.25%. GDP growth then was 2.51%. Now is at 2.98%. Before I take Atiku's other tweet, I'd love your comment, and then Ayo's comment.
It's as follows. Number one, statistics tell only part of the story. Statistics do not tell the full story. In a country where statistics are at best estimates, in a country where data is an issue, but I say it tells part of the story. But the real story is told in terms of the impact of the administration on individual lives. This morning, I've had cause to quote the African Polling Institute survey curated by Professor Bell Iwa, an economist, who says, or the report says, that hunger, poverty, dissatisfaction, will seem to define the harsh realities that Nigerians have had to deal with in the last 1 year. And basic questions were asked, in that survey. How do you rate Tinubu's job performance? How do you rate the performance of the Senate under Akpabio? How do you rate the performance of the House of Representatives under Speaker Abbas? I think that's his name. How do you rate the performance of the judiciary? What are the challenges that you have faced personally as a Nigerian? I'm sure if we all ask those basic questions, we will be able to respond, and we'll probably also express our dissatisfaction. That's at the personal level. This morning, we had Professor Bongo Adi on this program, a professor of economics, who says his dependents are putting him under so much pressure. He's in fact considering running away from Nigeria because he's considering whether he took a bad decision, deciding to stay back in Nigeria or to return to Nigeria. And then you have, now let me go to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, where you may well say, what do you expect the person who came second in the 2023 general election to say, and who is a prominent leader of the opposition? Of course, you don't expect him to commend the Tinubu administration. You can only, say, however, that what Waziri Adamawa Atiku Abubakar is saying will seem to reflect the feelings of the people who took part in the survey that I quoted, of the professor who was here, of the pastor that decided to leave Nigeria and relocate abroad, and similar other people who in the last 1 year have had to migrate away from Nigeria when they could not get the hope. However, to balance it out, Felix Morka, spokesperson of the APC, has responded to Atiku Abubakar. He says that Waziri Adamawa is befogged with envy, and for him to say that Tinubu's government is doing trial and error, that he is wrong and all of that. However, the true assessment will lie with the Nigerian people. How have you fared under Tinubu in the last 1 year? Is your life better 1 year ago or worse off today? Now, to take the other story about Mr. Nonuga and Ajuri Ngelale. Well, you asked me in my time. No, in my time, it could not have happened.
Yes.
Because I was special advisor, and I had the full permission and authority of the president, President Jonathan, as the leader of the team. A special advisor leads the team or led the team in our time. Every other person working within that media and communication space, senior special advisor, assistant, There are special assistants. In my office alone, I have 3 special assistants, working with me. So you don't issue a statement without clearing with me. Even the party could not issue a statement without clearing with me because they know I'm the last bus stop to the president. And the president will say, don't go and issue a statement that I did not authorize. So they knew that you had to clear with my office. But the problem we have, let's jump so that people don't accuse me of masturbating. Let's jump to the present. Mr. Ononuga bears the title of Special Advisor, Information and Strategy. Ajuri Ngelale bears the title Special Advisor, Media and Publicity. Now, 2 persons doing exactly the same job. So that is the source of the confusion. If you had somebody who is the leader of the team, then the next person, who is in a junior position, will know that he cannot just go ahead, to just go and speak. Except you are an attack dog, you've been given an attack dog role, then you are not doing formal, presidential communication. You are just there to respond to, Bole Kaja politics. But in this case, you are given 2 people the same professional job. That is bound to create conflict. That is bound to create confusion. And you see in Ajuri Ngelale's statement, he said, what Mr. Ononuga said was false and unauthorized. So it was rubbing it in to say, look, I have the job function. But Mr. Ononuga also, by issuing the statement, was saying that he has the job function. And what he has said, what Mr. Ononuga said, is exactly the same thing that the clerk of the National Assembly said. There was no difference between the statement put out by the clerk of the National Assembly, Tambawal, and Mr. Ononuga. And the clerk of the House was saying, of the National Assembly, was saying that the House should reconvene. All members are expected to be seated by 9 a.m. What do we know? Are they seated now? Ojinika, you quoted 11 a.m. when the president will address the National Assembly. So by 11 a.m., we will know who is telling the truth, who is lying. But however, the confusion could have been avoided in terms of if the president had paid more attention to nomenclature rather than duplicating the same position, and also if there had been a proper delineation of role. Each person could have been told, this is your job. You are the official spokesman. You do attack job work and just stay with attack job. You are the leader of the team. But once you have this confusion, that's the problem. Maybe this is part of the learning process for President Tinubu himself, for all the people who are in Abuja now. They don't teach how to run government or how to run the presidency. It's when you get there, that you begin to learn and you make amends ahead the way. But if there was good relationship, personal relationship, all of this will not be an issue. Ngelale or Mr. Ononuga could just have stepped down for the other and allow peace.
Dr. Bati, from a vantage point of who is now going to be the Oga?
No, I'm not in a position to determine that. President Tinubu chooses his team. He gives them assignment as he deems fit. The ball is in his court.
Right. I wanted to give Ayo the opportunity to respond since we are, analyzing President Bola Tinubu's first year in office. But let me take another part of Atiku's tweet. I'd love for you to respond to this part of his tweet. He wrote, first, President Tinubu's policies do not create prosperity. Instead, they pauperize the poor and bankrupt the rich. They spare no one. Nigerian citizens, the majority of whom are poor, are going through the worst cost of living crisis since the infamous structural adjustment program of the 1980s. The annual inflation rate at 33.69% is the highest in nearly 3 decades. Food prices are unbearably higher than what ordinary citizens can afford as food inflation soared to 40.53% in April, the highest in more than 15 years. Nigerian citizens have to pay 114% more for a bag of rice, 107% more for a bag of flour, and 150% more in transport fares relative to May 2023. Today, in some locations, motorists are paying 305% more for a liter of fuel, yet on a minimum wage of the equivalent of $23 per month. Nigerian workers are among the lowest wage earners in the world, Tinubu had the courage to remove subsidy on PMS and impose additional taxes on his people, but lacks the compassion to raise the minimum wage or implement a social investment program that would reduce the levels of vulnerability and deprivation of workers and their families. I'd like for you to respond to that.
The former vice president and also presidential candidate in the last election of the PDP, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, has detailed the sad reality of what we face currently in terms of the economic reality for Nigeria and Nigerians following some of the policies of this administration. When we were speaking to Professor Adi earlier, one of the things he said was that, and he actually used the term that Alhaji Atiku used in terms of trial and error economic policies, and the fact that whilst these policies were being announced, it was obvious and it has become clear that it wasn't well thought out, or there weren't plans put in place to fully implement or successfully implement these policies that were said to be necessary, because all the major presidential candidates had said one or two of those policies were going to be enforced if they had won. Now, if you look at the situation on ground, everything is said is correct. Are people poorer today? Ask the people. They will answer themselves. We know the Ebin power. We know the people that I'm hungry. People are hungry. We see people. If you look at the streets now, there are a few more people sleeping on our streets. More beggars. Unfortunately, whilst he was quick to make the announcement of subsidy removal, he hasn't been quick to effect the social intervention programs. Just two of them I'll mention very quickly. What's happening to the student loans? Despite promises, yes, they are going to launch. How successful has that been? What's happening with the launch of the CNG buses? What's happening with the minimum wage? And now, or living wage as a promise? So many things not done, and making people palliatives. Absolutely. Nothing has happened concretely, making people poorer.
All right, absolutely. Well, like Dr. Abati, you had mentioned the APC spokesman, Felix Moka, who responded to these questions posed by Atiku Abubakar and a lot of Nigerians, said that, the Tinubu administration has attracted dollars into the economy. And that is just...
Where's the money?
That is just for balance. That's what the APC is.
What is money?
Where's
How
the
much
money?
Is money? Well, all right.
All these promissory notes. Where's the money?
We'll take our final story. As the nation continues to grapple with the worsening state of the economy, the Senate on Tuesday passed for third reading a bill seeking to reintroduce the old national anthem despite the position held by the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, who said that the process to change the anthem should be subjected to a wider process. The old national anthem, titled Nigeria We Hail Thee, was written by a British expatriate, Lillian Jean Williams, in 1959 and was changed by former head of state, General Olusegun Obasanjo. There have been mixed reactions since the National Assembly began taking steps to reintroduce the old national anthem, although majority of the lawmakers in both chambers of the Assembly have spoken in favor of the bill. Senator Adams Oshiomhole, during the debate in the upper legislative chamber, argued that the words native and tribe should be expunged from the old anthem, while Deputy Senate President Baru Jibrin argued that the word motherland in the old anthem should be changed to fatherland, in line with our tradition. Let's take a listen.
But there is just one or two things I think we need to review, and I seek your deep reflection on it. Excuse me, sir, I am all for whatever is agreeable to all of us. I beg to plead that where tribe is used, we should change it to ethnic. Where you talk of native land, I am not a native man. We should talk of fatherland or motherland. The word native.
Our sovereign motherland. Well, motherland and fatherland is the same thing. But in line with our tradition and in line with our faith, I do think using fatherland will be better. But let's look at it, all of us. But I'm in total support of this bill. I stand with this bill. But I'm thinking that instead of using motherland, we should use fatherland.
I mean, what is going on here? We just, tackled the whole economic problems we're going through or we're facing in Nigeria, and this is what they're debating. And what was that, Rufai, with the Deputy Senate President?
No, he's sexist.
Dr. Abbas?
As far as I'm
Okay,
concerned.
very quickly.
Very sexist.
Now, when you play the old anthem, it's an act of protest.
That's what you always say,
When
but now that's
people
what's
are
happening.
protesting,
Yeah,
they play the old anthem
that's what you always say.
to reject the present, administration as a form of protest. So we find ourselves in a situation whereby the National Assembly of Nigeria is practically protesting against
that's
the
what it
government of
appears to
Nigeria
be.
by saying, let's go back to the old anthem. That's number one. Number two, is this a priority for Nigeria at this time?
Not at all.
I mean,
Look
if
at
you
what-
ask the ordinary Nigerian, he will say he doesn't have a problem with anthem. That is why I think
what's
Latif
happening
Fagbemi SAN is
Yeah.
right
Yes.
to say that this should be subjected to wider conversation. Number three, I think Senator Adams Oshomole is right. The words native and tribe
tribe.
are pejorative.
Yes.
Very
But of
pejorative.
course, he didn't win at the end of the day. Number four, the National Assembly says we can retain the second stanza of the second of the current national anthem as the national prayer. But I don't think national anthem is a priority of Nigerians. Nigerians want jobs, they want food,
That's
they
it.
want opportunities.
That's it.
Finally, the bill will be sent to President Tinubu. He should not assent to
We
it.
hope he
He should
does.
just leave it.
At all.
This is not what Nigerians want.
Absolutely.
Don't
What
sign
is
it.
the thing
I don't understand
about
what
national
it is.
anthem?
I don't understand.
They are jobless.
I'm glad that we all
When
agree
there's
on
a lot of
on
problems, they are
this
jobless
table.
people, jobless rubber stamp at National
I'm so
Assembly,
glad we all agree. We
representing
hope that the
their
president
themselves.
is listening. This is not what we need.
The success of a country is determined by its foreign relations around the world. For years, Nigeria has worked to improve its image among other countries. When President Bola Tinubu was sworn in, he immediately began engaging with global communities to form partnerships with governments and international organizations. The goal is to concentrate on maintaining regional cooperation and stability. The Economic Community of West African States and the African Union became his top priorities.
Democracy is nothing more than the political framework and the path to addressing the basic needs and aspiration of the people. This is why we must re-examine our current approach to the quest for constitutional order.
He was faced with the problems posed by several coups in the ECOWAS region. Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso were sanctioned almost immediately. The decision met with strong condemnation. The countries were already struggling economically and there were requests for the penalties to be repealed. The three nations announced their departure from the bloc. During the ECOWAS Heads of State Conference in Nigeria's capital, the ECOWAS president announced the lifting of some of the sanctions after extensive deliberation. Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso have been reluctant to rejoin ECOWAS, but in his role as chairperson of the bloc, Tinubu is working to unify the region.
In these very complex situations, when the president and the authorities of heads of state have used the carrot and stick method, and the whole issue of sanctions did not work. What that means it's left for the president and the chairman of ECOWAS is also, still continuing to dialogue with these people, with these countries who have left, and ECOWAS. And then there was, the president, if you listen to during the first extraordinary summit in January this year, the President Tinubu said that there was a time has come for ECOWAS to think of other ways fresh ways of doing things, fresh ways of, innovative ways of tackling the issue of terrorism and insecurity in the West African sub-region, fresh ways of, dialoguing with these countries who have exited the community. And so this is what has been happening. And, in terms of even fighting terrorism, there are lots of, ECOWAS has different protocols and programs in addressing terrorism. But President Tinubu has said that there is a need for a harmonization of some of these programs aimed at countering terrorism and insecurity in the West African sub-region. And then recently we've seen that the ECOWAS standby force, the heads of state of authorities have decided that this standby force should now focus on fighting terrorism. And we've seen, the heads of state authorities of ECOWAS, led by President Tinubu, has approved that, the sum of about $2.5 billion be raised for this ECOWAS standby force on terrorism to make it effectively, to make it effective in fighting terrorism. And this funds for this force is to be raised among member countries. Some of it's going to be raised among member countries. And we know that ECOWAS ministers of finance are putting together the modalities to make this a reality. And then we expect that when this standby force begins and starts, it will go a long way, because this standby force will be now sent to countries that in the West African sub-region that are dealing with insecurity, just like how we had in the past, like ECOMOG, for those countries who were doing with wars. And so we now have this one specially, devoted to handling the issue of terrorism. And so we hope to see, this standby force come to effect sooner than later. He has done a lot. Let's even look at still in Africa, beyond even, those countries in crisis. We saw what happened in Sierra Leone, when the insurrection happened last year in Sierra Leone. And it began because Sierra Leone is a country many feel is like on a tinderbox that needs to be, handled very carefully, because this is a country that has come out of a civil war, and efforts are being made that it doesn't erupt again, crisis doesn't erupt again. And so when we saw that insurrection in Sierra Leone last year, in December last year, in 2023, President Tinubu sent a strong delegation of some of the service chiefs of this country with the president of ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Toure, to go to Sierra Leone, dialogue with the president, and try to resolve the problem. And so we saw that eventually. We saw former President Nkrumah coming to Nigeria, on medical grounds, and that sort of like eased the tensions in Sierra Leone. So this is the way he has also, looked at, tried to address some of the problems and reached out to leaders in other countries for different reasons. We also saw what happened in Senegal, at the end of the day, the elections, the president didn't want to call the elections. Eventually he did. And we know that obviously the President Tinubu reached out to, President Macky Sall, so that, we don't have crisis in this country. We've seen the president reach out to different governments. He has traveled, he has tried to not just improve diplomatic ties with these countries, but also to bring about economic partnerships with these countries. We've seen with the EU, we saw the German Chancellor come to Nigeria last year. He visited the president. The German Chancellor came to sign different agreements, worth, millions of euros covering different areas. The EU has signed different agreements with ECOWAS in areas of climate change, in areas of regional integration, clean energy, So these are the ways where President Tinubu has gone, around different countries, even to Saudi Arabia, to deepen, not only to deepen diplomatic relations, but also for economic integration, economic development of Nigeria in this sense and those countries.
According to some analysts, the region is more divided than it has ever been under President Tinubu.
We noticed some assaults, policy changes here and there that does not seem to, show any some coordination. I think coordination is lacking, and then communication is another thing. One has seen a situation where the president has gone out and those handling him put out statements that were later retracted or found to be untrue. This is not good for his image. And then the other thing is that you also have to show some Nigeria ought to be asserting its position as authority, as a hegemon in West Africa at least. But the impression now is that the weakness that Nigeria has shown, the incapacity of leadership, has impacted negatively on ECOWAS, because without Nigeria, there is really no ECOWAS. And it's unfortunate that what is happening in ECOWAS, and people blame that partly, in fact, mainly on the fact that Nigeria is not functioning very well or has not shown leadership. So I think there is deficit in that area. The president has to, particularly now that he is also having the position, the saddle of as a chairman of the authority of ECOWAS, he ought to show more from what leadership. And you have also seen situations where the last time it was reported that Nigerians didn't know where he was for a week or thereabout. That is not good for leadership. That is not good for his image. I think Nigeria under Tinubu should get his acts together and then show leadership so that others, not just Nigerians, West Africans and Africans, in fact, the black race, they are pinning their hope on Nigeria to, show leadership.
Economic diplomacy has been a key component of President Tinubu's foreign policy, with an emphasis on attracting foreign investment, expanding trade possibilities, and promoting Nigeria's economic interests overseas. For these reasons, President Tinubu has visited nations. His first stop was in France for a 2-day climate summit. He traveled from France to London for a brief period of privacy. Tinubu visited Guinea-Bissau in July last year for the 63rd ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, where he was elected chairman. He went from Guinea-Bissau to Kenya on July 15 to attend the African Union's 5th Mid-Year Coordination Conference, then traveled to India in September of last year to participate in the G20 Leaders Summit. Before returning to Paris, he visited the United Arab Emirates and the United States for the United Nations General Assembly. In October, the president traveled to Saudi Arabia, Guinea-Bissau, and Germany before heading to Dubai. Between May and December last year, he visited Nairobi, Kenya, Porto Novo, Benin Republic, and Berlin. The presidency had come under fire for funding around 1,114 delegates to the United Nations Annual Climate Summit COP28, which was held in Dubai at the end of last year. He was also criticized for traveling on an official trip with his sons. In response, the presidency stated that it only catered for 422 delegates and promised to reduce travel delegations by almost 60%. He did not, however, mention a reduction in the amount of his travels, instead underscoring that Nigeria is ready and open for business. President Tinubu's foreign policy initiatives have attracted investors from Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Germany, Mauritius, South Africa, Hong Kong, United States, and United Kingdom, amounting to billions of dollars.
Priority visas for students, because so many countries, the developed countries, give admission to students and then they don't issue the visas. Some even commit funds. So we've been pushing very hard on these countries, saying, look, if you know you're not going to issue them visas, then don't allow your universities to admit them, and even allow them to commit funds, and then they don't get visas, and then they're sitting, they waste the whole year without going to school. So we're making progress on that. With all the activities going on, we've had about 300 engagements in and out of the country.
But problems still exist. Critics have voiced concerns about the need for greater consistency and clarity in Nigeria's diplomatic interactions. Others are now pushing for a more forceful approach in tackling poverty and to reduce the rate of Nigerians leaving the country.
I also think that what needs to happen as quickly as possible, again, is that at this point in time, our envoys are actually not seated where they are. The ambassadors have been recalled. There's also a need to have ambassadors out as well, because for you to drive foreign direct investments, if you also come and sign agreements and agree on certain agree on certain things that is documented in the form of MOUs and all manner of trade agreements and all of that, people have to also sit back and follow up on those agreements, and it's usually the responsibilities of ambassadors.
True.
I expect that ambassadors will be appointed and they would actually be out there doing the bidding of Mr. President and doing the things that Mr. President has itemized in his Renewed Hope agenda as far as foreign policy is concerned. Then domestically, we can also not, we can't ignore the challenges that Nigerians are facing. It's a good government must, recognize that. And that's what we're saying, that it's important that even the opposition in the country needs to also stand up. It's not criticizing for the sake of criticizing. It must hold government accountable to what is going on, So whatever issues that we have domestic, at the domestic front, the president and of course members of his cabinet must also face them head on. Inflation is at all-time high. And these inflations, we know the costs. And if there's anything the government needs to do to be able to stem the tide on inflation, we need investment in education massively. We need investment in infrastructure. Infrastructure is not just, developing Abuja alone. It's also connecting areas that needs to be connected.
The 1 year of President Tinubu is one in which he has stepped out to represent Nigeria. We have not had any major scandal in our foreign policy in terms of missteps. If you do away with what I said about Niger, so far I would say so good, but it is qualified goodness. We have traditional partners, none of them has turned their back on Nigeria. But your attractiveness as a nation that will also bring benefits to you will depend on what you are doing internally. All right? If at home you bring progress, at home you unite your people and they are happy with what you are doing, you don't have to fight too many battles on different fronts, then the outside world will take note. And that's what then will bring the other benefits, as in your productivity. What is the shape of your economy? What is the structure of your economy? And what goods are you producing? What does the outside world demand? Are you in a position to supply those goods in demand? But if you are not, then nobody will, it's like being in a marketplace. You have wares that you are selling. Unless your wares are useful and attractive, buyers will not come to you. I use this analogy because running a country is very much like being in a marketplace where you have products and you want people to come and buy from you. And it's not just an ordinary market. It is one in which there is competition. It is one in which others are looking at what you are doing. Either they want to copy or they want to outdo you in whatever you are producing. And therefore, you must keep quality at the back of your mind. You must keep value at the back of your mind. So our engagement with our traditional partners, I will say, I've not seen a major shift, but I've also not seen any gain that wasn't there before.
As President Bola Tinubu's government enters its second year in office, the implementation of Nigeria's foreign policy is expected to influence Nigeria's global position and contribute to peace, security, development in Africa and beyond. Punaraman Benjamin.
Welcome to Noble Black News, where empowerment meets truth. Our mission is to uplift and empower the Black community. We stand for truth, integrity, and representation. Our stories are your stories, told with pride and passion. Join us as we celebrate our heritage and our future. Together, we are stronger, louder, and more united. Noble Black News is your voice, your platform, your news. We bring you the stories that matter, with integrity and heart. Our commitment is to the truth, no matter the cost. We highlight the achievements and struggles of our community. Every story we tell is a step towards empowerment. We are more than news. We are a movement. Join us in making a difference, one story at a time. Together, we can change the narrative. Noble Black News, empowering our community, one story at a time.